Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that literally affects every single one of us, the true nature of institutional power. There's this deeply romanticized idea out there that being a leader is kind of like sitting on a throne, that once you're the boss, whatever you say goes. But the reality? It's completely different. True leadership isn't just some blank check. It's a highly regulated, tightly restricted role. Okay, let's dive into this. We really need to shatter this myth of the omnipotent boss. When you think about, say, the head of a government agency, a university president, or even a corporate CEO, it's so easy to just assume they own the power they're wielding. But they don't. That power is fundamentally borrowed. The source material we're analyzing today makes it crystal clear. Leaders operate strictly within the authority explicitly granted to them. They're the administrators of power, definitely not the originators of it. Now, looking at this comparison, we've got a really stark contrast. Over on the left is the illusion, personal discretion. It's this idea that a leader can just do whatever they feel is right in the moment. But over on the right, that's the reality, mandated responsibility. And this is an absolutely crucial distinction. A leader's role is entirely defined by their mandate. So if they take any action outside of these specific legally defined boundaries, it isn't just a minor misstep. It becomes arbitrary, entirely unaccountable, and ultimately unlawful. So to really grasp how this all works, we're going to quickly break down the blueprint of lawful leadership into 5 clear pillars. 1, the source of authority. 2, ending arbitrary decisions. 3, full auditability. 4, accountability. And 5, the stewardship role. Let's get right into it. Pillar 1, the source of authority. Where does power come from? And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how authority actually flows. Because if a leader doesn't own their power, where on earth does it come from? Well, in a public institution, the delegators are you, the citizens, and you grant that power through constitutions and laws. Now, if it's a corporate or statutory body, the delegator is the board, and they grant power through policies, mandates, and approved procedures. It is a direct, unbroken line. A CEO can't just suddenly decide to rewrite their mandate because they feel like it on a random Tuesday, right? Which brings us to this vital rule of thumb from our source text. Public power must remain public, not personal. Think about it. Whenever a leader uses institutional authority for, say, a personal vendetta, a favor to a friend, or just a random whim, they are quite literally stealing power from the citizens or the board that delegated it to them in the very first place. Moving right along to Pillar 2, ending arbitrary decision-making, the mechanics of a lawful choice. So we know where authority comes from in theory, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, it looks like a very strict checklist. You can't just fire someone because they looked at you funny or approve a massive budget just because you kind of like the vendor's vibe. No way. For a decision to be actually lawful, it absolutely has to hit these 5 marks. It's got to be policy-based and evidence-based, meaning it's grounded in actual rules and hard facts, not feelings. It has to be documented and reviewable, so anyone else can go back and check the work. And, of course, it must be totally consistent with the mandate. When these 5 requirements function together, they guarantee fairness, predictability, and equal treatment for everyone. Pillar 3, full audibility and transparency, building the proof of action. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. Auditability sounds like the most boring paperwork imaginable, but it's actually not. It's the essential, active process of preserving institutional memory. The life cycle of a lawful decision follows 3 distinct steps. Step 1, an action is taken. Step 2, it is fully documented. And hey, it's not enough to just scribble down what was done. The documentation must explicitly lay out why it was done, how it was executed, and under what exact authority the action was taken. Then, step 3, it is preserved for citizen oversight or board review. This actively builds an unbroken, undeniable audit trail. So the crucial point is this: auditability is the absolute backbone of public trust. Without traceable, documented references explaining exactly why decisions are made, public trust completely collapses. I mean, you can't just look at people and say, hey, just trust the leader. The whole system has to be designed so that trust can actually be verified through hard, concrete evidence. Pillar 4, accountability to citizens and the board. The safety net. Because look, even with the absolute best policies and flawless audit trails, there has to be a mechanism for answering to those delegators we talked about earlier. True accountability isn't just some corporate buzzword to throw around during a press conference. It's a rigorous, built-in solution that requires 5 specific conditions. Sure, you need the clear mandates, transparent processes, and documented decisions we just went over, but you also need independent oversight, meaning someone completely outside the leader's chain of command is actively looking in. And most importantly, You need actual consequences for noncompliance. Let's be real, without consequences, the rest of this list is basically just a polite suggestion. I want to pause on this stark, incredibly impactful statement right from our source text. Without accountability, authority becomes abuse. It's just an inevitable law of institutional dynamics. Unchecked power, no matter how well-intentioned a leader might seem at the very beginning, fundamentally degrades into exploitation if it isn't held accountable to its delegators. Which brings us to Pillar 5, stewardship over ownership, the ultimate purpose. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely redefines the very nature of what a leader actually is. I want you to think of an institution like a vehicle. The leader doesn't own the car. They are literally just the temporary driver entrusted with the keys. And as this breakdown shows, they're entrusted to protect 4 equally vital elements: public assets, which is the actual capital or infrastructure; organizational resources, like the staff and operational tools; the mandates, which are the legal goals they're supposed to achieve; and crucially, institutional reputation. Because a leader can severely damage an organization not just by blowing through money, but by completely eroding the public's faith in the institution itself. So to summarize this whole stewardship principle, a leader's duty is strictly to protect, manage, and serve. Period. It is never to control things just for the sake of power or to exploit the institution's resources or reputation for their own personal gain. They are simply caretakers of something so much larger than themselves. And finally, the refined statement, a gold standard policy. Okay, we've covered the 5 pillars. Now let's look at how all of this beautifully synthesizes into what you could call a gold standard policy statement. Public resources and institutional authority are entrusted to leaders solely for the purpose of serving the people and must never be misused, expanded, or applied beyond the scope defined by law and policy. I love this because it leaves absolutely no room for ambiguity. Authority is a tool for service, strictly confined within a clearly defined legal box. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought to carry with you. Take a hard look at the institutions operating in your own life, your local government, your school board, maybe even your workplace. Ask yourself, are your leaders acting as owners who just do whatever they please, or are they acting as the stewards they are legally required to be? The blueprint for lawful leadership is right here. It's up to us to expect it and to enforce it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those tough questions.